Hi everyone, Paul Levy with Brownells here. Today I'm joined by Ian and Karl from InRange TV. Thank you gentlemen for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
We're just doing a quick SHOT Show debrief, I guess, on day one. Picking your brain on what you've seen so far, what you like about the show, what you don't, that sort of thing. So, SHOT Show 2019, what have you seen that you're excited about, if anything?
Well, we have to say Brownells retro rifles.
Yeah, I know.
We don't have to. They didn't tell us to.
Yeah, it sounds like a sales pitch, but that is absolutely the truth. I mean, you guys are putting out really cool stuff, and it fits into our historical interests as well as modern interests. So for InRange, it's a completely perfect fit in terms of what you're doing.
So I assume your range day videos are going to post here shortly.
Yeah, they will.
What are some stuff our viewers can look forward to that you're going to post?
Aimpoint P1, or the Acro that they're calling
Actually,
it.
Yeah, that's true. So we've been playing around with, and the industry has for quite a while, red dot sighted pistols. And it really is the evolution of a practical pistol, in my opinion. But the red dot sights that we've been putting on pistols have been problematic. You've got RMRs that have battery issues, then you have to take the optic off to put a big new battery in. You've got the Delta Point Pro, which is durable, but it's a big optic and it scoops dirt. Yeah. Aimpoint's got the new Acro P1, which is a completely enclosed tube. And I think that's going to change the whole thing.
So what's it do different battery-wise? It's classic Aimpoint, it runs for 50,000 hours? Or?
They said on setting 7, brightness setting 7, it lasts a year to a year and a half constant on.
Okay.
But one of the big differences is it's a completely enclosed tube. So like with the Delta Point Pro and RMR, you just have a piece of glass that's exposed. When you're moving through a practical environment or dirt, those things literally become like dirt shovels.
Yeah.
And they're very hard to clean, and if they get occluded by rain or mud or dirt, you can't really use them. The new Aimpoint unit is a completely enclosed tube. You can just wipe the dirt off, or even if it's occluded, you can look through it like Binden sight and still use the red dot.
There you go.
So Aimpoint's going to change the pistol game again with the red dot.
Awesome.
They are.
We'll have to do some. What's the format of the cut? It's proprietary.
I think it's their own thing, but they said they were going to have a bunch of different mounting plates.
All right, we'll have to get on that for our Glock sights for sure.
Yeah, it is tragically ugly, but.
Yeah.
But
looks
it's
like a
also
little school bus on there.
But it's also built to be Aimpoint because he was talking about using it as an actual charging tool, beating on it. It's an Aimpoint optic.
Yeah, functionality before looks.
Yeah, something you wouldn't necessarily do to a Delta Point. And I love the Delta Point, but I'm not going to beat it on the side of a rock to clear a gun or charge it either.
Yeah.
This Aimpoint you could.
So that's a theme you're excited about, red dots on pistols. Is there a theme at this year's SHOT Show that you're not excited about, or you see stuff that's going the wrong way?
We didn't see as much tragic derp as we were expecting, to be honest.
This is
tragic derp.
We were actually saying this at Media Day. We're walking around and we're like, my gosh, we're like hitting one after another kind of interesting products. More so than any year before this, which is, I don't know if the audience is going to like that because they kind of like when we find some of that weird stuff, but there has not been too much.
You think that's driven by what you guys put out there and just social media in general, just giving feedback that manufacturers hear about quicker, or? Just luck this year.
I think that market is largely driven by people being willing to buy stupid things. Yeah. I would love to think that we can be part of helping to educate the gun buying community to be a little more cognizant
just slightly
of what
better.
Make some better decisions. But I don't know if we have anything to do with that. It'd be cool.
Yeah. It is only day one. Who knows what we're going to uncover in the next couple of days.
I do take some pleasure on those videos.
We have not yet found a trigger-activated light for snipers, but we might find one. You never know.
We can make that.
Yeah, there's somebody already trying that.
Yeah. Some awesome whole corner of the show dedicated to magic gun oil.
Oh, yeah. So as far as SHOT Show itself, when you show up, what's your goal? Like, what do you want to accomplish? You just want to see cool stuff to get it out there for your viewers to see, or what are you looking to get out of it?
I think we typically have two parallel goals, and one is to look at things that we knew about in advance, that we knew would be here, that we were curious about, and the P1 falls into that category. And the other is then just to explore the vast wilderness of SHOT Show to see what other interesting things are out there. Okay. It was SHOT Show a couple years ago that was the genesis of our What Would Stoner Do project.
Yeah, it is.
Looking at, everyone who makes AR parts is here. We have access to all of it. Let's see what we can find that we can put together well.
And keep in mind, it's not always the big guys that make the most interesting things. There's little guys that come up with compelling arguments or items or projects.
Yeah, the next area upstairs, you see stuff from manufacturers you've never heard of, and it's just wow, that's pretty good.
I would say my interest in SHOT Show is pretty divergent, right? One of them is actually the historical part, with seeing, and we already mentioned this, like your retro guns, or today I was drooling over some of the Pedersoli, the Whitworth. That to me is a fascinating gun, right? That's something I get to see here, or some of the stuff that's coming out that's being reproduced. But I also want to see the most modern things. Where are the trends? Where are things going? What can we do to make better, more practical guns? Because I'm a shooting competitor. I run 2-gun action challenge match. I want to see what's coming to the world for that too. What can we do to make our shooting capabilities and skills better with gear? and what's changing. That's another thing.
As far as the gear that's going to enhance your shooting capabilities, is there anything besides the aim point that you saw so far? Anything along those lines?
Actually, you know what? There was another one we saw at Media Day. Someone's asked in some of our Q&As about digital rifle scopes. And I don't know if this is a good product or not yet, but what we saw of it was kind of interesting.
It's moving forward.
A little company that, I think it's a little company that was at Shooting Day at the Media Day called Sensight. Okay. And it was like a combination of a smartphone and digital rifle scope. So you have this LCD display, which means there's no eye relief concerns because you're looking at a screen. And then there was a screen below it where you could do digital zoom from 4 to 20, change between day, night, and IR. You have a BDC built in, you could program it, and it's all sitting there on Picatinny rail for like $1,100 or $1,200. I think that digital rifle right there, it's maybe not there yet, but we saw, for example, the tracking point a while back, and now you see this at a consumer level at like $1,200. I think there's a whole new world coming of digital rifle type scopes and optics.
I think night vision too. That's the way night vision's going.
Yeah,
digital.
exactly.
Yeah, that's exciting. So as far as your channels, I'm sure everyone knows you from both channels, but let's backtrack. Just a quick history lesson. When did Forgotten Weapons start out, time frame, and how it developed, and then InRange? What's the history between you two?
Forgotten Weapons goes back to about 2010.
Okay.
Kind of the early genesis of InRange was when Karl and I first met up. It was because he saw a YouTube video of me shooting one of the late war German World War II guns at a really pretty mediocre 3-gun event up in Phoenix, and actually commented on YouTube that, hey, I see you're shooting that up at this lame event, you should come shoot it at my match because it's a lot better. And I showed up at his match.
Which is the 2-gun action challenge?
Yeah, yep. So I've been running the 2-gun match for a long time. I didn't mean to cut you off if you weren't done yet. So I was actually looking up some World War II German experimental rifles, and I found your video of you trying to shoot that FG-42 at this 3-gun match. And 3-guns turned into 3-gun. It's nothing wrong with it, but it's a different environment. It's not a place where you're going to bring a historical rifle.
Very gear-driven.
Yes, and an FG-42 doesn't fit into the paradigm.
Not the right gear.
And so I sent you that message going, I think I got a better venue for this. And then lo and behold, you showed up. And then it turned naturally into this idea of, why don't we take the 2-gun action challenge match and not only shoot modern guns, but take some of these old historic guns and compete against one another with them to try and get on the clock. How do these things really handle? And that's kind of what turned into InRange, because it was the genesis of it.
Yeah.
Like old guns using modern shooting competition and concepts, but to look through the lens of history at them.
And vetting those guns with that concept in mind. So speaking of the FG-42 caught my attention, have you, that's SMG guns?
Yes.
Do you still have that in your possession? Are you doing any content on that particular gun in the future?
They are getting very close to releasing their first pattern reproduction FGs.
Further slanted?
So there were a bunch of changes. The original first pattern guns had milled receivers. The obvious distinctive change is the grip. It's a very sharp angle. I'm really excited to get my hands on one of those.
Is that going to retail for about the same, like $5,500?
I believe it's $5,500.
Start saving.
So I have 2 guns from Rick at SMG, and I love them both. One is one that we played with, which was just a concept. It was modernizing the FG-42, so it's got Picatinny rail, a short barrel. It's got an AR-15 pistol grip on it.
Okay.
And that's pretty cool and compelling, but it needs work. It was just something we just played with out of parts.
Yeah.
And then I also have, and you have one too, but I have one of his DPMs. He took the DPM and made it a semi-automatic.
Right.
And then the RP-46 belt feed conversion kit on it. Oh my gosh, like, I'm not usually the guy that goes to the range and just dumps rounds. That gun, I love that gun.
That's 7.62x54?
It is. And it's the belt feed system that they took the DPM, the Soviets took the DPM and turned it into their belt feed.
What's appealing about it? Is it just soft shooting?
It's mild, but you know what? Even in a semi-automatic format, you can run that trigger fast enough, you're getting about 90% of the feel of the real gun.
Okay.
And there's something compelling about a semi-automatic belt fed that runs reliably, but is close to the real rate of fire. It's a lot of power.
So are there any guns you haven't seen at the show that you'd like to see reproduced that maybe are feasible, that would be short leaps for people? Maybe not a FAMAS, which is way out there.
True.
But
Yeah.
I have, whenever people ask me that, I've always said that the Burgess folding shotguns are, I think there's enough of a market to actually justify someone reproducing those. Uberti. Maybe you guys. But, most of the time, and I think you recognize this better than most people, reproducing an old gun is much more difficult and much more of a commercial challenge than people recognize. You're able to do it with some of these things because they are fundamentally based on the AR platform that's well thought out and available. Taking some weird gun that, they only made 1,000, well, there's probably a good reason they only made 1,000, and you're going to have problems, and that's going to be hard to bring into the market. The Burgess was bought out by Winchester and shut down because it looked like it posed a real competitive challenge to them. And I think with cowboy action shooters and people who are just, the internet making it possible for people to be more interested in obscure and interesting guns, and it's a folding 12 gauge. Like, it breaks apart at the barrel and just folds in half, and they originally actually made a belt holster for the thing.
Nice.
It's just cool.
I picture a like gun show special nylon holster for that. I don't know. It popped in my
the
head.
Uncle Mike's Burgess holster.
So maybe I'm giving away some ideas, but I hope I am, because I'd like to see someone do this. With the advent of red dot sighted pistols, one of the things we're always fighting with is the locking systems on pistols, tilting barrels and all that, have an effect on the ammunition you're using with the red dot in terms of your zero or accuracy.
Yeah.
I think the most perfect, wonderful red dot sighted system would be one with a fixed barrel and a gas delayed blowback system like an HKP7. If you were to build something, if someone were to build something like that was proper modern capacity, I think it would take the red dot and then you put an Acro P1 on it, you're now taking the red dot sighted pistol to a whole nother game.
HK?
I know, like literally we were joking around with them, but like where's the P7 M18 red dot sighted pistol, right? Because we're all building these on platforms that weren't meant for this. And if we built a platform that was meant for this, it would be an even better thing. The other thing I'd love to see, which is this is fantasy land, but like reproduction lever action guns like the 1866, or what was the Winchester rifle, but in 44 centerfire. Like the actual 44 Henry round.
Yeah.
Not 44-40, not 45 Colt, like chambered in the real thing. That's now that would have to be some kind of amalgamation between ammunition manufacturers and the rifle. It probably doesn't have the demand in the market, but I'd want one.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think we'll put that on the list right after my Magpul show shot mags.
Exactly. But doesn't mean I wouldn't want it. And actually there would be a cowboy action market for that.
Yeah, that's true.
And I said center fire because it'll be reloadable,
Yeah.
as opposed to Henry rimfire. But I'd love to see that.
So you mentioned the show. What's going on there? So you have one, you have two?
I have two. I have an 8mm Lebel one, and I have a 30-06 one.
All right, and you have more content coming out on those with you're tweaking it and getting it to run?
Yes, well, both of my guns actually run just great.
All right.
I had some magazine issues with the 30-06 one. The magazines for the .6 show shot are extremely rare, and I'm very lucky to have managed to get 4 of them. But they were dented, they were kind of beat up, and so some guy named Mark Novak fixed them up for me.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So what's the appeal there for the show for you?
Oh, for me, it's a combination of I'm very interested in early self-loading firearms, and the Shosha is very much that. It's a long recoil system.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in World War I firearms. The Shosha was the most, numerically, the most produced machine gun of World War I. And of course, I have a very deep interest in French military firearms. When you combine that, having the French one is cool, and then having the version that the American Army contracted for and bought, that's super cool.
Is there a hint of myth busting that's appealing to you, like about going out there and putting some of that to rest, or?
A little bit, but if I push that much, I always run the risk of people trying to run it too far.
Yeah.
So like the Shosha is in fact, especially the 30-06 one, like one of the worst machine guns of World War I. But that doesn't mean that it's without value. It doesn't mean it's without historical interest.
Or comparable to its peers at the time.
Exactly. I like to compare them to Sten guns. Like the Sten is also one of the worst fielded submachine guns of all time, but it's also one of the most important. Just because it's a cheap gun that was thrown together in order to be manufactured very quickly and has all sorts of issues associated with it, that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean it's a bad gun in every way. It's still a very interesting gun, a very relevant gun, a significant gun. The Shosha is, to me, much the same.
If I could speak to that just a moment, even though so what happens is lore gets turned into some sort of unbelievable, real, like absolute truth.
Yes.
And if there were,
Doctrine.
if it was the most mass-produced light machine gun of World War I, it did work. It had to have worked. It was not something, they were not going to issue the most machine guns of all time in World War I that were just completely dysfunctional. They do work. Now, there's problems with the gun. There are better guns of the time, but that doesn't mean the Shoshat's worthless. And that's where the lore goes. And that's where people tend to take things, and that's false.
And we see it the most commonly seen one with the AR-15 with the retro stuff. We get the comment, "Oh, I bet it's a piece of junk like the original." It's like, no, and this, with its improvements and its development, it's fine. And
exactly. Not to blow our own horn that hard, but I do think that's one thing we've been able to do with InRange to a degree is we've been very good with our videos of when we went with the mud tests and the dirt tests, but the AR-15 series of content on the channel in general. I think that if you look at our content there, we've demonstrably proven that this is an incredibly resilient, durable design.
Absolutely.
And the lore is based on other data that happened that's not the design of the gun.
Yeah.
Other things happened to the AR-15 and the M16 during Vietnam that are problematic, but the design of the gun is genius.
Oh yeah. No
Absolute
doubt.
genius.
Yeah. Well, the SHOT Show proves it, I think.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both very much. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, no, it's fine. I did want to plug one thing real quick. You said this thing, I don't know if this is even at SHOT Show, but Richard Lage's upper. So here's the thing that that both of us are excited about.
Yeah.
Richard Lage Manufacturing, he does a bunch of conversion uppers for the M11, M11A1 submachine guns. And he's got the M11A1 out now. The A1 is coming. It's going to ATF for approval. But he's taken the 380 machine pistol of nonsense junk, and it's now an open bolt 5.56 select fire machine gun.
Which is like the most entry-level Class 3 type machine
It is
gun
the
you can
lowest
get.
price, most available on the registry.
What does one go for now? I'm an Iowa, so I don't know the market.
God, they're
that
up in
well.
the 8,000s range now.
They've gone up, depending on which type, I would say 5 to 8.
Yep.
The M11A1s are kind of some of the pricier ones now because as a trigger pack, they're the most compact.
But it's so exciting that you now have this M11A1 with a 380 machine pistol. You can put his conversion on and turn it into a 9mm submachine gun or a Suomi drum fed, and now soon a 5.56. That's really compelling.
You think that's obviously going to crank the price up on those? You'd think
It already
anyways.
has. Yeah.
We saw that the same thing with the BR-10s. I've had collectors comment that the AR-10 prices have gone up. They're going to go up anyways.
Yes.
But they've shot up the past 2 years-ish.
Richard Lage and Lage Manufacturing has completely altered the M11 market forever because he's made it into a viable gun.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's something else I'm excited
That's
about.
the stuff that's great in
Yeah.
this industry. You get those guys that focus in on that one platform and take it to the next level.
Yes. And he's another example that he did it right. He put in the time, he did the development, and the things just work. They're sleek and well designed, and they work.
All right. Well, thank you both. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you stopping by, doing a quick video with us.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of the show. I look forward to the videos anyways. They're always great. Thanks for coming by.